Medkai's role in the War of 1812. The Medical and Chirurgical Faculty of Maryland was founded just 23 years after the birth of our nation. Many of Medkai's early members had fought in the American Revolution, and they were prepared to fight again in the War of 1812 and in the battles of Bladensburg, North Point, and Baltimore, which took place in August and September of 1814. Fort McHenry, which was defended during the Battle of Baltimore, was named after one of Medkai's earliest members, James McHenry. However, it is one of our founders, William Beans of Prince George's County, who played a pivotal yet largely unknown role in the history of the Star-Spangled Banner. William Beans was born at Brook Ridge, a 1,000-acre farm in Prince George's County, in January of 1749. There were no medical schools, so Beans apprenticed with a local physician. His reputation spread beyond the county, and in 1799, when the Medical and Chirurgical Faculty was established, he was one of its founders and a member of its first examining board. In August of 1814, the British sailed up the Potomac River, planning to burn the nation's capital. Some of the soldiers marched up the banks of the Patuxent and Potomac rivers and through Upper Marlboro, where Beans lived. British General Robert Ross selected Beans' home as his headquarters, and Beans agreed not to cause his troops harm. Because Beans chose not to fight against the occupation of his home, he was believed to be sympathetic to the British. However, because it was feared the British would burn the capital city of Annapolis, Beans secretly hid Maryland state records on his property for safekeeping. When the British Army returned to Upper Marlboro after burning Washington, they were jubilant, drunk, and marauding. Dr. Beans and his neighbors were forced to arrest the most badly behaved of the group. One prisoner escaped and reported to General Ross that Beans had taken some prisoners. Ross returned to Upper Marlboro and arrested Beans. There was outrage at the arrest for the great rudeness and indignity heaped upon a respectable old man. Beans traveled as a prisoner down the Potomac and up the Chesapeake to Baltimore, which the British were preparing to burn as they had done Washington. Francis Scott Key, the nephew of Upton Scott, Medkai's first president, was engaged to free Beans from the British. Key traveled to Baltimore with letters of support from President James Madison, as well as from British prisoners whose injuries Beans had treated only weeks earlier. Beans was held on the British ship Tonnant, and Key sailed out to negotiate his release. While Key was negotiating, the Battle of Baltimore was beginning. However, before the sea battle even started, General Ross was killed by an American sharpshooter as he led his troops overland to Baltimore. For more than 25 hours, the sea battle raged, and bombs rained down on Fort McHenry from the British ships moored in the Patapsco River. Beans and Key watched and waited through the night. As long as bombs were still being launched from the fort, the men knew all that was not lost, and the fort still stood. Towards the early morning hours of September 14th, the cannon fire slowed and then stopped, followed by an ominous silence from across the water. Both men were gripped by hope and fear. Was the fort lost to the British? Would Baltimore suffer as Washington had? As dawn broke, Key and Beans were able to see that the huge flag was still flying above Fort McHenry. They knew that the British had not been able to capture Baltimore. As the men sailed back into the city, Francis Scott Key penned the now famous poem. It was printed in a local paper and then set to the tune of an old drinking song. Dr. Beans returned to Academy Hill, his home in Upper Marlboro, and continued to practice medicine. He died at age 80 in October of 1828. Dr. Beans is buried in a small graveyard in Upper Marlboro and is remembered throughout Prince George's County, where roads, schools, and parks bear his name and continue to tell his story. In 1914, Medkai placed a bronze plaque at the gates of the graveyard, and in October 2013, Medkai President Dr. Russell Wright participated in a ceremony at the gravesite where the Daughters of the War of 1812 placed a new plaque detailing Dr. Beans' role in the Star-Spangled Banner. If you enjoyed this video, we'd appreciate it if you could leave a like or a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to get alerts for future videos. For further insights, feel free to explore our history blog at medchiarchives.blogspot.com. Thank you.